A Karen confronts my friend and me in a park, demanding we speak English like normal Americans. She even calls the police on us, claiming we're planning something illegal. Here's what happened next. I was hanging out with my friend Maria on a warm summer day at a park downtown. The sun was shining bright, and a gentle breeze was blowing through the trees. It was the perfect day to catch up with Maria, whom I hadn't seen in a while. I'm a 24-year-old woman of Asian descent, born and raised in the United States. I'm fluent in English, and my family's native language, Mandarin. Maria's family had moved to China when she was just a child due to her father's work. She had grown up in Shanghai, where she attended an international school that catered to expatriates from around the world. It was there that she had picked up her English name and became fluent in both English and Mandarin. Maria and I were speaking Mandarin when we noticed a woman who looked to be in her mid-40s approaching us. The woman, whom I'll refer to as Karen, stormed up to us, looking angry. "Why are you speaking that language?" she demanded. Maria and I looked at each other, confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. "This is America. Speak English like everyone else," Karen replied, her voice raised. Maria and I exchanged a look of disbelief. I was born and raised in America, and Maria had moved to the States from Mexico when she was just a child. We had every right to speak any language we wanted. Despite growing up in different parts of the world, Maria and I had a lot in common. We both loved trying new foods and exploring new places, and we often bonded over our shared experiences as minorities in a predominantly white society. But Karen didn't seem to care about any of that. She continued to berate us for speaking Mandarin, insisting that we speak English like normal Americans. I tried to explain to her that we had every right to speak whatever language we wanted, but she wasn't having it. "You're being un-American," Karen spat at us. "I bet you're talking about something illegal or dangerous." Maria and I exchanged a look of disbelief. We were just catching up on each other's lives, discussing our jobs and families. There was nothing illegal or dangerous about it. "We can speak whatever language we want," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. Karen's face turned red with anger. Karen then pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "I'm reporting 2 suspicious people speaking in code," she told the operator. "I think they're planning something illegal." The situation was getting out of hand, and I was growing increasingly anxious. The last thing I wanted was to get into trouble with the police, all because of someone's ignorant prejudice. Karen was still on the phone with the operator, insisting that Maria and I were spies or terrorists or something. I could hear her raising her voice, and I knew things were not looking good for us. "Please, Karen," I begged her. "We're just 2 friends catching up. We're not doing anything wrong." But Karen was not listening. She was too caught up in her own delusions of grandeur, too convinced that she was doing the right thing by reporting us. I could feel my heart racing as I saw more people start to gather around us, drawn in by the commotion. Some of them were staring at us with suspicion, while others looked sympathetic. Just then, Maria's boyfriend, who was also fluent in Mandarin, arrived at the park. He immediately noticed the tension in the air and rushed over to us. "What's going on?" he asked, looking at Karen with a mixture of confusion and anger. Karen turned to him, accusing him of being involved in our supposed plot, but he stood his ground, calmly explaining that we were just speaking our native language and that there was nothing wrong with that. The police arrived soon after, and Karen eagerly pointed us out as the supposed culprits. But to our relief, the officers were professional and level-headed. They asked us for our side of the story, and we explained what had happened. After a few minutes of discussion, the police concluded that we had done nothing wrong. They scolded Karen for wasting their time with a false report, and she slunk away, looking embarrassed and defeated. "I'm sorry you had to go through all of that just because some stranger thought she was doing the right thing. And I'm glad the police saw how ridiculous Karen's accusations were and let you off with a warning. That's definitely not something I would have wanted to experience in my own country, so I can't even imagine how it must have felt for you. Am I the jerk for wanting to salvage my relationship with my mistress-turned-girlfriend-turned-moth heir of my child? I left my wife of many years for her, and now we're living together, but the relationship is not going well. Here's what happened. I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for the absurd age gap and the way we started. And I agree, and I deserve it, but I would really like some genuine advice past going to counseling. She won't agree, and I can't afford it anyways. Tangible things that I can work on and introduce to help us get this either as a couple or as effective co-parents. Long story short, my ex-wife and I have been together since middle school. We have 4 daughters in their teens. I was a CHD and part-time worker for most of my life until my youngest was in middle school. My ex agreed to invest in a passion project business of mine. I hired a receptionist. We started an affair and her baby trapped me. Now we're living together and have a young son. She resents me because she feels she was fooled. She saw me as a business owner who had a nice car, nice clothes, took her to nice places, etc. She thought I was rich, so she got pregnant on purpose, admitted it, not an assumption, hoping to use me to not work and sponsor her family from overseas. Well, actually, my ex-wife and her family are the rich ones. None of our homes were in our names. We were renting from her parents and giving them a nominal fee with the expectation that these homes would be left to my ex and me after their death. This allowed my ex's salary, $150K, not huge in the high COL area, to stretch, and we lived a really good life. I left our marriage with half our savings, our $25K, and my personal property and car. I lost my business due to lack of funding and I did not seek alimony. I resent her because I feel I was fooled. I thought she loved me and couldn't believe the interest a young, hot woman showed in me. She was incredibly persistent and pursued me strongly. But she has no feelings for me, no care or desire. Now that the ruse is dropped, I can't believe I gave up my entire life for what I see was an ego trip. I loved my ex-wife. Really I did and still do. But I had never been with another woman, and any attempts to open our relationship were shot down. This was like a wet dream come true, and I was weak. Now both me and my GF are in a place we didn't imagine. She's living in a shitty apartment with an old man and still has to work. I've lost my kids, the love of my life, my family, my lifestyle, my business, and it's all 100% my own fault. She stopped being intimate with me as soon as she found out I wasn't rich. We're still together on my end because I feel like I need to have something to show for this shit show of a situation. At least I got a son and a partner out of it. At least it wasn't for nothing. And also because I don't trust her with our son. She would never agree to give me full custody, and she's not a good mother. I would be worried for his safety, and the people she would have him around. I honestly don't know why she hasn't left me from her end. What can I do to improve this situation? I know logically it would be best to break up and co-parent, but I'm afraid for my son, and I'm embarrassed for myself. Is there a way to salvage this situation? I'm thinking of just telling her we can have an open relationship. She can sleep with whoever she wants and go wherever she wants, as long as she lives here, so I can have my son 100% of the time. I work from home. I don't know if that's the answer here though. First update, November 14th. I had an affair, my ex-wife divorced me and my kids absolutely refused to speak to me. I was an incredibly involved dad. Most of their lives I worked 1 and 2 days a week and then stayed home with them the rest. I was closer to them than their mom, and I'd like to think I've never disappointed them before this. I made a mistake. It's been over 2 years since it all came out and I haven't been able to make any headway. My eldest is hung up on the fact that I now have a young son. Every firstborn of each generation in my family has been a boy for a long time and she broke the streak. I honestly could not care less about that. I've always thought that pressure was stupid, and I'm not a traditionally masculine guy that always wanted a boy. But she's so hurt that I have a son, and is convinced that's all I've ever wanted, and he's replaced her and my daughters. None of that is true. All of my girls said they don't consider themselves to have a brother, and want nothing to do with him. All 4 of them feel betrayed and blame me for breaking up our family. I deserve the blame. It's my fault and I take responsibility. But I can't change the past and I don't know how I can begin making up for it. My ex has full custody of them, but I'm supposed to have visitation 1 weekend a month. They're all in therapy, and it was suggested to not enforce the visitation and respect their boundaries while they work through it. I've done that the entire time and there's no progress made. Does anyone have any suggestions about what I can do here? My ex absolutely hates me, but was always supportive of the girls staying in contact with me. She respects their wishes but still gives me updates once in a while. My eldest is turning 18 soon and graduating this coming year and probably moving away for university. I feel like the time to make up with her is especially slipping away. I know I'm the shitty person here. I was a terrible husband, but I was honestly a really good dad, and I miss my girls. Has anyone been through something like this? How did it turn out? What are your suggestions? The readers of this thread asked the original poster if he fought for custody. He said, I did fight for custody, but they were all old enough that the court considered their preference in the situation and only granted me visitation. A part of that was also because I didn't have the means to get a place large enough for all 4 girls, my son, my girlfriend, and myself. I still don't have room for them in my current apartment, and being a mostly SAHD did not give me the experience education to get a good enough job to support them here. If I had the choice, I would have chosen my ex and family over my affair partner. The readers then asked if his AP is his son's mother. He said, she is. I got baby trapped during the affair, something she admitted, which I know makes this much worse. I think I could have maintained a relationship with my girls even after the divorce if I didn't have to stay with my AP and didn't have a new baby. The user then tells the reader that he abandoned his family for a girl half his age, so he couldn't expect them to want anything to do with them. The OP argued back saying, I didn't abandon them. I didn't leave my family for my GF. I wanted to stay with my girls and my ex and work this out. My ex refused because the girls already knew about the affair, and it wouldn't be setting a good example. and there was going to be another child involved that she wanted nothing to do with. But to be clear, I would have stayed with my family after the affair if given the choice. The affair was a stupid mistake born out of curiosity since my ex was the only woman I've ever been with. It was not something I was committed to or wanted to continue long term. User asks OUP if he and his ex had a conversation about exploring their sexuality and why he sought the affair. The OP said, "I brought this up before, and we did have honest conversations about it. We'd been together since middle school, and had been each other's first and only. She loved that. She had no curiosity about other people and thought it was special that we'd only had sex with each other. And she is a very monogamous person in general, couldn't even handle the thought of me being with someone else. If I wanted to be with someone else, it would have to be as a single man. I didn't seek an affair. My GF pursued me strongly and it just happened. She got pregnant quite early into it. I didn't really plan on anything." Top response for this comment: "Just happened, huh? You accidentally fell into her cat?" A user asks OP why he won't separate from his AP. OP: "I have to stay with her because she's a bad mother, and I don't trust her with our son. If we split up, then she would have him at least 50% of the time. I would have left a long time ago if not for that." OP's second update, January 26th. "Good news, my girlfriend and I have broken up. She has gone back to her home country and left my son with me. Refused to sign any formal custody agreement, so I'm hoping she stays there and doesn't bother us again. I'm pretty sure if she comes back and demands time with him, I have a good case for maintaining custody. She's not even interested in FaceTiming with him, so he remembers her. I feel bad that my son will deal with a shitty absent mother, but I hope I can get him into therapy as he grows. Bad news. I've tried my best to insist on visitation with my daughters, and that has fallen through. They absolutely refuse to see me. They wrote me a letter together that says how much they hate me, how betrayed they feel, how they'll never forgive me, and how my son will never be their brother. To not even bother telling him about them because they'll never be interested in knowing him. Just to forget about them altogether and move on with my new family. I have no legal recourse. The youngest is 13 now, old enough to have a say in custody arrangements, and I don't think forcing them to see me would do me any favors long-term anyways. They also included pictures of their mother's wedding. My ex has no obligation to tell me about her personal life, but I'm pretty pissed that there is a man living with my daughters that I didn't know about. It is a family friend that has been in their lives for 10+ years, so not a total stranger. But it still hurts to see pictures of their recent wedding and family pictures with my daughters. They mentioned that they have a father figure and don't need me anyways. The whole thing really hurt. I know I have no right to feel hurt that my ex has moved on when I cheated on her, but their whole relationship has moved very fast, so I'm now wondering if they started it before we got divorced. No way to know now. Doesn't matter anyways. My ex agreed to keep me up to date and send pictures of my daughters once in a while. After dealing with my son's mom, I'm grateful she is so good to our girls and I don't have to worry about their well-being. I'm trying to focus on being a good dad to my son and patiently waiting for my girls to grow up and reach out. It may never happen, but I'm hopeful that they will understand me more as they become adults and gain context for life. Top comment on this post: "Man ruined his whole life to get his dong wet for 5 minutes." Wow, by all accounts his wife seemed awesome. She let him be a stay-at-home father, fully and financially supported his passion project when he wanted to pursue it, and even then still let him leave with $25K in savings from their joint account, even after he betrayed her trust. Also, I always wonder how much of a great father this idiot was when he was a stay-at-home dad. Like, dude, you were with your children every day of their upbringing and raising them whilst your wife was at work, and not one of them will even speak with you 2 years after the affair. By all accounts, you wasn't even that good of a parent even before the affair. Am I the jerk for leaving my drunk boyfriend and his friends stranded after the Super Bowl? After my boyfriend made a disrespectful comment and got handsy, I left to avoid any confrontation. Here's what happened. My 33F boyfriend, 33M of 4 years, is a big football fan, and he has a tradition of meeting up with his high school friends at a bar for the Super Bowl every year. It's often the only time in a year he gets to see some of these friends because they're busy with their families and life. I don't like football, so I'm happy to be able to drop him off somewhere, have an evening to myself, and pick him up when he's ready to come home. He tends to go hard with the alcohol when he's out with this group. Last night my boyfriend texted me that he was almost ready to be picked up, so I headed to the bar. He wasn't as ready as he made it seem, so I ended up going in and sitting down with them while everyone finished their round of drinks. He was pretty drunk and he started getting handsy in a way that I wasn't comfortable with out in public. So I politely asked him to stop. I didn't want to make a scene, so I leaned in to whisper in his ear asking to stop. He got angry and whispered back, "You should consider yourself lucky that I'm going home with you. I could go home with any woman here if I wanted to." He couldn't, but he's always been a dreamer, lol. I was taken aback as he's never said anything like that to me before. I get he was drunk, but still. Anger set in and I excused myself as if I was going to the bathroom. I ended up leaving and texted him to let him know I left. Unfortunately, he had arranged for me to drive 2 of his friends home too. wouldn't have been an issue, but he also hadn't communicated that with me. Instead of calling an Uber or taxi like I assumed he would, one of his friends called his wife. The wife had to wake their toddler up to go and pick them up. My boyfriend was furious when he came home and still is this morning. He slept on the couch and we had an argument before he left for work. He says I embarrassed him by just up and leaving. He vehemently denies saying what he did, doesn't recall getting handsy, and insists he wasn't that drunk last night. I also got an angry text from the wife saying I was an asshole for leaving them drunk and stranded, forcing her to wake up her toddler to go and pick them up. She also had a vague passive-aggressive Facebook post calling me out. Now I'm questioning whether I overreacted. Maybe I should have just brushed off his comment because he was drunk and followed through on the commitment I made. I just felt so disrespected by what he said after I asked him to stop doing something that was making me uncomfortable. So, am I the jerk for leaving my drunk boyfriend and his friends stranded after the Super Bowl? Same day, 5 hours later, the OP gave the following update. Thanks for everyone's feedback and responses, stories. To answer a few common questions/comments, he has never said anything like he did to me before. He can push my boundaries from time to time but has always respected them when I've said no, stop. We've had a really solid relationship up until this point, but this has left me with a lot of questions. He doesn't go out often, but when he does, he usually binge drinks, especially with the group last night. He reverts to high school frat boy mode. This was his high school group of friends that I have limited interaction with. I've got my group of friends, and then we also have our group of couple friends. I don't know the wife at all, except for a couple of dinners over the years. Truthfully, his high school friends aren't my cup of tea, so I don't interact with them much. The reason I decided to just slip away and text him was because I didn't want to make a scene. After what he'd said when I tried to set boundaries, I couldn't predict how he'd react. I didn't want him shouting or saying something else demeaning out loud. And he was very unpredictable last night. It seems the wife wasn't told the whole story. I did respond to her text with an apology and explanation. Went so well that she left me on read and has left the Facebook status up. Speaks more to her at this point. I didn't know until I got to the bar to pick him up that I was also driving his friends home. In normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been an issue at all. A heads up would have definitely been nice, but I probably should have ensured rides were arranged for them before leaving. I've decided to stay with a close friend for a few days to figure things out. My boyfriend and I have built a life together, but I'm not sure we can recover from this. I don't want our relationship to be contingent on stopping drinking or no longer hanging out with this group of friends, or the promise that it won't happen again. From experience, ultimatums don't work and lead to resentment. Update as requested by some. First off, thank you to everyone who took the time to respond. I read as many of your comments as I could. Thank you for sharing some of your stories, and I wish I could hug each of you that were or are in my situation. I really appreciated the support, and also some of the honesty in the judgments. Some of what happened could have been handled differently. I acknowledge that me leaving without saying anything wasn't the best decision in hindsight, but at that moment, it was the only decision I felt I had given the shock of what happened, and the flight response is triggered. I have done a whole lot of reflection. I don't know why this incident was the catalyst, because looking back there's a lot I let slide at the cost of my self-worth. I had my blinders on, and ignored things I shouldn't have, which I'm embarrassed to admit. However, I still felt like we could work through things. At the very least, we needed to talk. I had hoped that we could have an open conversation about what happened, and ideally a plan to move forward. So my boyfriend and I met up today for the Valentine's dinner we had reservations for. The dinner was pretty emotional, and didn't go as I hoped. I apologized for leaving his friends stranded as a way of me showing to him that I took responsibility for my actions, even though I feel even more justified thanks to you all. But he unfortunately wasn't willing to do the same. He still denies doing and saying what he did, despite remembering everything else that happened while he was at the bar. And he actually doubled down again about me embarrassing him. Now, not only by leaving them at the bar, but for also having the audacity to respond back to his buddy's wife. He said that they were his friends, and I had no business airing our laundry to them, or involving them in our issues. I just can't comprehend how someone who supposedly loves me can't accept responsibility for his actions, or at the very least acknowledge he hurt me. He obviously doesn't respect me. It's done and over. I can't do it anymore. We're going to go our separate ways. I told him as much. We own a house together, so it's going to be a process, but I feel oddly content with my decision. So thanks again to all you internet strangers that lifted me up and offered supportive words. I could not have walked out of the restaurant so confident in my decision if it wasn't for you guys. I'm back at my friend's place now, with a hot cup of tea and Women's Worth by Alyssa Milka on repeat. As the lyrics say, holy shit, I'm tired of loving a man who acts like a child, and holy shit, I'm done with losing my mind just to love someone. And I am. I'm done. I think OP got a glimpse into her future. She was a girlfriend ready to pick up her drunk boyfriend. In the future, she would have been a wife taking care of her toddler alone and being woken up in the middle of the night because her drunk husband can't order an Uber. Good call, OP, to get out. If you enjoyed today's video, check out the video on your screen right now where an entitled Karen tries to remove a really sick child out of the emergency room. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.